Welcome, 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 everyone. It is Thursday, noon Eastern time, and you know what that means. It is my favorite time of the week. It is time for Talent Experience Live, the show that covers everything that you need to know in talent acquisition, recruiting, human resources, talent management, and everything in between. Today, we are talking exclusively about talent acquisition, and it is a fantastic episode. So excited to have everyone here today. I am your host, Devin Foster, and Talent Experience Live is proudly brought to you by the good folks here at Phenom, whose purpose is to help 1 billion people find the right work. That is the reason why we host this show on a weekly basis, why we have a plethora of fantastic webinars, why we've been to every single HR tech event under the sun this past fall, why we have I Am Phenom coming up in March, and really why we exist as an organization. And you may be thinking to yourself, wow, that's a lot of great content, but how does that help 1 billion people find the right work? And the answer, it's truly quite simple. It's through our intelligent talent experience platform, which helps candidates find the right fit faster, employees evolve in their current roles and beyond, recruiters achieve next level productivity and efficiency, and managers get to build better teams through data analytics and automation. And of course, in the year of 2024, you can't mention automation without mentioning artificial intelligence and machine learning. And of course, that is built into the platform through a plethora of options, but more specifically through our Phenom X Plus. So if any of this interests you at all, run. Don't walk to phenom.com to learn more. But of course, you can wait till today's episode wraps in order to do that, because I mentioned we have a fantastic episode centered all around talent acquisition today. From RFPs to ROI, we are joined by Deloitte strategy for selecting winning talent acquisition technology. And today I am going to be joined or pass the ball along to two fantastic industry leaders, Lindsay Morrow here of Phenom and Bhawna Bist of Deloitte. They are going to dive into how do you really select talent acquisition software. It seems every day there is a new company, there is new technology. There's a lot to unpack when you are embarking on the journey of looking for something new. So they talk about certain strategies, how to decipher what the end goal is and how to get there, how to really encourage the rest of your team to get on board with some of these new technologies, and everything in between, including, some practical framework and how to have some of the tough conversations. So without any further hesitation, here is Lindsay and Bhawna.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Bhawna, thank you so much for being here with us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Lindsay. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. Look, I am really looking forward to the dialogue today, as I think that it is so top of mind for many, many people, given this time of year, given so many things that are changing in the world of technology. So thank you for joining us today so that we can lean a little bit on your expertise on this particular and I think very top of mind topic.
Thank you for having me here, Lindsay.
Yeah, of course. So would love for you to introduce yourself to this audience. So again, to those joining in, welcome. My name is Lindsay Morrow. I'm our Vice President of Strategy here at Phenom, and I am joined with Bhawna Bist with Deloitte. And Bhawna, if you could introduce yourself, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Bhawna Bist. I'm a managing director in Deloitte's Human Capital Practice, and I lead our talent acquisition transformation advisory services. I've been with the firm for about 10 years in the talent acquisition transformation space and across industry and consulting for over 22 years. I was in HR and leadership and talent acquisition leadership before moving to consulting, so bring a perspective which is both advisory as well as practitioner.
Which I think is so well-rounded, right? Particularly for this topic where we're going to be discussing the how and the what of really evaluating talent acquisition technology to ensure that in a sea of options and opportunities, that you're selecting the technology best suited for your organization in order to yield the best ROI. So Bhavna, I think it's great that you've been not only advising customers on exactly this, but you've really been in their shoes, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so then let's really start with, as we all know, there's a lot of things happening in the market, and things in technology is really changing so rapidly, particularly in the world of talent acquisition. And so I'd really love to kick it off with your perspective of the broader trends that you are seeing in the TA talent in the market. So, what new developments or technologies are really gaining traction among hiring teams? And when you're interacting with Deloitte's customers, what are they most interested in?
That's a great way to start, Lindsay. So, as you said, talent acquisition technology is rapidly evolving. In fact, most of the developments which we see in HR technologies, it's led by TA technology because of the, I think, complexity TA handles, as well as the opportunities there is to infuse technology within talent acquisition. We do a marketplace study and do a lot of work with our clients as they put together the TA technology strategies and are addressing some of the complexities in the function through technology. And we do an annual research which informs us in terms of what are the trends in TA technology, as well as what are the questions the clients are trying to solve. So I just share with you what we are seeing from a TA technology trends perspective. And this is also what I would say is something which is top of mind for our clients. So the first thing which we are seeing is embracing Gen AI in recruiting and talent acquisition. Again, Gen AI has really opened the aperture for really enabling technologies to create outputs across various modalities, text, image, videos, that was previously done by the recruiting teams. And these core capabilities of content generation, summarization, changing the way we search is really becoming, I would say, core to how recruiters are doing their work, as well as how talent acquisition is being even consumed by hiring managers and candidates. So it's something which we are seeing as from TA technology perspective, features, functionalities which are available now for our clients. And there's a huge appetite in terms of really looking through how can we bring in more Gen AI capabilities to deliver talent acquisition. So that's the first trend we are seeing. And if I look at Deloitte's State of AI report, it does say that across business, 91% of business leaders are expecting for productivity gains to coming through talent acquisition, through Gen AI. And we see that particularly the case also with the TA function. The second trend we are seeing is around skill-based hiring and how technologies are enabling skills identification, skills assessment, and for talent acquisition, really becoming the currency on which a lot of AI is tethered on. So again, skill-based hiring is not new, but we see continuous improvement and I would say progression in how technologies are enabling skill-based hiring. The third trend, I would say, which we see is the focus on assessment technologies. Almost, I would say this goes hand in hand with skill-based hiring and assessment because there's more reliance on assessment now, looking at how assessment can be more predictive and how different, I would say, features of summarization of interview notes to prompting questions to having more reliant assessment coming in together as an assessment platform is also something we are seeing our clients being very interested in investing. And I would say the last piece on the trends for this year has been around high volume hiring. It is acknowledged that the requirement from a technology perspective for high volume hiring is different from your traditional stack but how does it deliver the experience it needs to? So really looking through these 4 technology trends is where we see the market really delivering newer solutions, as well as the appetite from our clients to consider this as they are putting together their TA technology strategy, as well as looking at vendor selections. I would just maybe just kind of close this out from what are emerging trends we are seeing, which are fairly new. They're very, I would say, they're the buzz in the market right now around agents in HR and recruiting. So that's coming up. I would say there's a lot of interest in understanding this space, as well as seeing how it can be real for talent acquisition.
I want to, and I know we don't have a ton of time, but maybe double click into just a couple of those, because I think one, it is very reaffirming and exciting to me that so much of what we advise our customers on in this space is exactly in alignment with what you are seeing in the market, right? And really, when the way that we think about it is that AI is really changing the way that we live and, of course, the way that we work, right? Really elevating and shifting roles and shifting that work to be more productive in nature. But because it is changing work, then that means that the skills that are required to do that job are also rapidly evolving, right? And so having technology that can, in a sophisticated and intelligent and actionable way, really help an organization understand what the skills landscape looks like today, what that's going to look like, and how to really solve for the gaps within the organization, the individuals, and the teams within, I think become more critical than ever. Now, for the assessment piece, like, I'm just curious, why in terms of the assessment, how do you see that trend really plugging in to the AI and the skills component?
Yeah, I think it's all kind of bringing in the newer solutions and the ways of what technology advancement brings to us to the assessment phase of the recruiting process. Right from, I would say, question generation or question bank generation, which is something which is enabled by Gen AI in terms of content generation. Again, these were traditional gaps in talent acquisition in terms of how do we create a question bank, for example, or how do we synthesize interview feedback from different interviewers in a way which is automated. So again, those solutions are now enabled through advancement in Gen AI, classic use cases of content summarization through Gen AI capabilities. But that's now being infused into the product itself. So it is not like you have to create or build something new, but turning on these features with your current stack can enable you immediate gains in terms of productivity, ease, and I would say the role of recruiter, rather than being involved operationally, is also changing to be the reviewer of content in many cases. So it's enabling those shifts, and which in a very meaningful way, so that the hiring managers and recruiters get time back to focus on delivering experience.
Right. And then, as you mentioned, right, their roles are changing, elevated in a way, becoming more consultative, right, in nature as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. The role of a recruiter to becoming a talent advisor, I would say, is one of the key priorities for most of our clients. And really looking through what the future work of a recruiter is. How do we bring in more consultative skills? How do we bring in more data and insights for recruiters to shape recruiting? And how do we enable differentiated experience? So absolutely. And technology is playing a big role in this, because it's shifting how much time is spent in operational activities versus being really a strategic advisor to a hiring manager in the business.
Yep. That's exactly right, Bhawna. Thank you for that. And so, that is, especially considering organizations that have technology in place today, right? So there's a lot to unpack there, and the importance of that all really working together, to your point, to deliver this beautiful digital experience, because ultimately it's about both productivity as well as experience, and it's really tough to have one without the other. And so when companies are considering implementing new TA technology, right, whether that is a CRM, components of AI within their technology that they have today that you mentioned, or even skills tech, how do they typically start the evaluation process? So what are the typical triggers, let's say, for TA technology selection?
Yeah. So I would say, if I can put them in different archetypes, we typically see three archetypes which triggers, investment or even consideration of bringing in newer technologies for talent acquisition. The first archetype we see is technology simplification, where we see a client, they may have over the course of years brought in a lot of technology, a lot of point solutions, some core, some point solutions, but really they are looking at taking a step back and looking at an approach which is more holistic, which is more streamlined, and it reduces the friction because they have a lot of fragmented technologies. So again, the objective there is more streamlined, upgraded technology infrastructure, which reduces the cost and also the pains of integration in many ways, and also an upgradation of technology, because it would reduce the overlap and really look at consolidation across the board. I think this is also enabled because the marketplace for TA technology is also evolving. So in the past, they may have invested in certain technologies which had gaps. However, now with either M&A or the product expansion, they have an opportunity to really look at the broader stack of their core technology. So I think that's the first archetype we see. The second one would be optimization of the current stack or technology investment, where there are core technologies. However, the client has not really leveraged the entire strength of what that technology brings. So they may not have taken upgrades, or, it's been a while since the time they have done a health check, considered bringing in new features and functionalities to maximize what is native to their technology investments. And the third archetype is really looking at talent acquisition, technology transformation, which normally comes through a reframing of what their processes are, what's the experience talent acquisition is delivering, and taking I would say, a more broader approach to modernize talent acquisition and really think through, if we have to deliver a certain experience and process, what should technology bring to the table, and then take an evaluation of what may be the right considerations or options, which then leads to a vendor selection. So again, three archetypes, our clients would be at different stages in their journey. But again, these all would then, in some ways lead them to make decisions on selecting new technologies or upgrading their technology infrastructure for talent acquisition.
Yeah, Bhawna, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's probably very helpful that you and your team really helps to align customers and meet them where they are. Now, we've talked before, and I always think about the importance of aligning not just the technology, but the people, right? What's going to change with the work that they're doing in the process. If you think about archetypes, let's say, well, really any of them, chances are that if they're looking to advance the technology that they're leveraging to ultimately hire people and give the best experience possible, that there's something that also needs to change about the work that's being done with the recruiters and the hiring teams and the process that they're leveraging. So could you expand a little bit upon this and really the advice that your team gives on helping to really start with the vision in mind in order to ensure that whatever technology you're moving forward with really aligns with that vision and the overarching business needs?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question, Lindsay. It's such an important one because I think sometimes if you just think about the technology as a solution, it doesn't provide you with the results you're expecting. So
Right.
I would say there are 3 steps before you come to a technology decision, right? And the start is, as you mentioned, the vision. What is the business vision? And therefore, what is talent acquisition vision? What are we trying to achieve as a function? I think that becomes the core, North Star for talent acquisition in any of the transformation efforts that are underway, including technology. I'll just give you an example to bring this to life. We
I
were
was just
working
going
with
to ask you for one, so that's great. Yeah.
yes. So we were working with one of our global clients in the semiconductor industry, and a very efficient, a high-performing talent acquisition function, traditionally very efficient, low cost per hire, and a good and robust talent acquisition technology stack. However, the business in semiconductor is going through a lot of change, and they had a huge shift in terms of what the business future aspirations were, and therefore it shifted the kind of talent that needs to be hired or developed in the organization. And that was a big shift in terms of the traditional processes, experience technologies were not enabling that. It did lead to talent acquisition actually shifting the vision. They required more investment for the business because the talent needs changed, and the TA needed to invest more to make the business successful by bringing in the right talent. And that then led to the whole transformation in terms of how TA was organized, the operating model, the experiences TA needed to deliver, because there were new talent groups that needed to be hired in different global geographies. And that impacted the process and then the technology. So it did start with how TA was really making the business successful and what it needed to deliver. Again, to me, the experience becomes very core because you may have different personas who are net new or changed from the past. Also, there's changing expectations from the candidate side, which needs to be addressed. So again, technology becomes one of the enablers of the solution and how you achieve your vision. But I would say the groundwork is strategy, experience, processes, which lead to technology. And to your point, change as well, because a lot of change to your recruiters, the way they work, the hiring managers, interaction with recruiting, how candidates receive talent acquisition changes. So there's a huge change management aspect to deliver and get the, I would say, results which are kind of put in motion through this transformation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you bring up a really good point, several, in fact. And when you're talking about, as we're talking about people, process, and technology. So in the example that you used, the type of candidate that they were looking for shifted in a very fast way. And so that the process, the tech, the recruiters, the hiring managers, everyone really had to change to now align with the new vision to match the business needs. And change management is a really important component of this, right? The journey doesn't stop after the evaluation and selection process. In some ways, that's where it begins. And so, how should talent teams really think about evaluating technology with those various stakeholders in mind, many of whom aren't necessarily a direct part of that evaluation and selection process? So I'm thinking about the recruiters that will ultimately use the technology, the hiring managers, like how do their experiences and keeping in mind those experiences affect the overall selection process?
Yeah, I think it's such a core point in terms of getting the voice of the function and voice of the customers, inform technology what's expected from technology. So I would say at the start of, when we engage with our clients and take them through a vendor selection journey, there's a lot of time spent in really understanding what are your signature functional use cases. What are we trying to solve? And from a Deloitte perspective, we do have the benefit of our methodologies and tool sets because we've done this for so many clients, and we kind of have a pulse in terms of what really technology is bringing to the market. So usually there's a starting point where you have a repository of use cases saying, this is what a CRM does. This is what's really happening in this type of technology. What are we trying to solve here? But really the initial sessions or the initial approach is to listen. If it's what does a sourcer or a recruiter or a hiring manager really need from technology, and then kind of bringing an external perspective to what we're hearing to really shape the functional use cases of technology. I would also not kind of at this stage kind of go with the mindset that this is a CRM technology, this is an ATS technology, or some kind of definition of what that product category may be. I think with the evolution in technology, there is so much flexibility in terms of how those use cases can be met. It can be through an engagement layer, it can be through your core technology, it can be something which you build. So I think just going with an open mind, but really trying to understand what are we trying to solve, what is the experience that needs to be delivered, and then looking at, I would say, the external education in terms of what's available in the market through different types of products, and then looking at really identifying what product or product categories may even be a fit for solving those use cases. There, I would say we also take a step back and say, is there an opportunity to get most of these use cases through optimization of your current stack? Do you really need to bring in more, or there's an opportunity to, I would say, optimize your investments? And so it becomes, I would say, a much more holistic conversation of use cases, product types, technology strategy, understanding what's, I would say, happening beyond talent acquisition in HR technology or even organization technology. Some of our clients are building GenAI for the organization and also for HR. So is there an option of building something for TA through your in-flight work, which may be beyond talent acquisition? But really looking through that lens, and then once you've kind of aligned on very particular requirement, running through the RFP process, which would be anchoring mostly on the use cases, but also looking at additional areas like product architecture, extensibility, how does a product really work with other ecosystem partners, and then kind of arriving at what may be the client's decision on their technology.
Yeah, Bhawna, thank you for that. So it's really about starting with the people, the process, and the vision, and with the needs and experiences of those in mind, that then informs the direction of the technology evaluation component of it, right? Now,
Absolutely.
you'd mentioned a few of these, but I would love to just double click on some of those critical factors. So once the vision is set, once the process and the understanding of what needs to change there is laid out, now we know, right, these are really the gaps from a technology standpoint that are going to help us realize that vision. And so once, the organizations have entered into that evaluation phase, what are some of those most critical factors to consider when evaluating technology providers? And also with that, what advice would you give people listening here today to really help them cut through the noise, I'll say, to really allow them to make the most informed decision for them?
Yeah, I would say as you're looking through, the product, if a client is at the point where they have addressed vision, they understand the use cases, and you're in the process of putting together an RFP for which you would be sending out or getting responses and seeing the demos. I think, just through the lens of what you need to ask, right? As I've mentioned, predominantly would be your integrated use cases, how it's meeting the experiences. Is that definition very clear? Sometimes we see when we are brought in to review some of the use cases our client teams have put together, and they say, we want a third-party point of view. Can you have a look at it? Are we missing anything? And we'd see they have like 300 use cases for maybe a CRM technology. And we would really ask the question, what's really needed? 300 is a lot to evaluate. Can we make it 30? But really making sure they speak to what's most important for that technology to deliver. And sometimes that happens through a series of discussion and validation internally, because it's not a summation of everybody's inputs, right? As you said, there's a lot of decision makers. And many times it's a consensus-driven process in a way where there's a lot of input, but the clarity on what's most critical, what's high impact for the technology to deliver, without which we would not proceed, versus something which may be good to have, right? So I think that is important and very, very helpful for once you get into the evaluation phase, as well as the vendors who are responding to the RFP. Because they really need to know and show up how the critical use cases, high impact use cases would be met. The other areas, as you mentioned, where you really need to partner with the IT organization, with the AI council of your organization, data teams, which all inform how this technology would work within the current IT infrastructure, risk infrastructure of the organization. So looking through, like, have we addressed questions around how the AI works for a particular technology, what securities are in place, how is data captured, how would integrations work, how would the product really work with other ecosystem partners we have. So architecture, use cases or integrated solution, extensibility and ecosystems, I think all have to be considered and kind of weighed in as you put together your vendor evaluation scorecards. So I think all of them become very critical. The advice I'll have for the organizations, or if you're looking to select these technologies, ensuring there is involvement and visibility to teams beyond just talent acquisition, for them to give you the right questions, what is a go, no go for certain areas, because the risk appetite, especially on AI, changes per organization. And for the, I would say, the advice I'll have for vendors is being responsive to what's being asked of, because sometimes there's a lot of thinking which goes behind the RFP, and what may appear to be something which is not as important from a vendor perspective, but may be very, very important from a client perspective. So being really responsive to what's being asked for, how it's being asked for. Sometimes even sequencing is very important, because when we get into vendor demos, there are these maybe 6 to 8 hours long sometimes, where you have a global audience, and there's a lot of time participants are coming in and out based on how the questions are aligned and what time can they make for this demo. So I think just listening in and being very responsive to what's being asked and how it's being asked, it helps the teams, the organization to score, make sure everybody's input is when they score the results and arrive at a decision.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. That last part in particular for us as well. So thank you for that. You brought up a point, and in our experience, and we interact with organizations so much that are in exactly this phase of the journey. And oftentimes, what we see is that the selection is made, the desires are set, but the business was a little late or ill-informed of what was needed from those other teams. And I'm thinking like AI governance and risk being really the primary ones. So what advice would you give for customers on really when and how to involve those partners or internal stakeholders into this process?
Yeah. I think the earlier the better. So as soon as there's even an intent that we are looking at bringing in new technologies in talent acquisition. Most of the modern, I would say, technologies would have an AI component in it or Gen AI component in it. So versus like as soon as you are even thinking about your work on TA strategy design. Prior to even vendor selection, just the information helps, and understanding what is in flight beyond just talent acquisition in HR or broader IT in the organization. I think that's a very, very helpful connect. And then as you get in the journey of creating the questions for your RFP, making sure they have visibility into the process, as well as questions. There's a validation from the teams. So I would strongly recommend like bringing them in the journey and making sure they are providing the inputs which are required from their perspective as technologies are being evaluated. Same thing for data security, IT, etc. So. And also bringing them in the process of either, if those questions are a part of your RFP, to review the RFP responses or be a part of the demo. Sometimes we save time towards the end of the demo for IT teams, data teams to come in and ask any questions which may have not been clear in the RFP response, to making sure these don't become, a showstopper later once the TA team is very excited about the technology, but then you figure out, but this will not work for us, and then you're back at the drawing board. So it saves everybody's time, and you're also ensuring there's less risk in the process.
It's so important that everyone early in the process, before so much time and effort is spent, in aligning on what the appetite for the business as a whole, right, is, especially for some of these advancing technologies, right, Bhawna, that everybody's on the same page of what this team is looking for and what that technology is, does, and means, especially as we're talking about things like AI and Gen AI in particular, early in the process, so that everyone is on board with making these changes, right? And, so much of what you're talking about, and you mention it as that third archetype, but really we're in an age of transformation, of digital transformation, right? And really ensuring that all of these experiences are digitized, meaning they all interact together. And I know that this is something you and the Deloitte team talk a lot about. This has really become increasingly critical. And so what advice would you give to organizations to help them approach digitizing that candidate and recruiter experience within their TA process?
I think the first two lenses, I think, as you start this journey would be an external perspective in terms of what's really changing. And I'll give an example of, say, the way candidates find and apply for a job is very different today than what it used to be in the past, right? You would go to a career site and apply, but now the process of really finding a job might be you go to ChatGPT and ask a few questions of what may be a right career for somebody with my skills, right? So that's changing how you kind of get insights on potential career options change, how you would want more transparency from organizations in terms of careers and DEI and what matters to a candidate when they apply for a job. If they're also evaluating the organization, what messages they want to hear has completely changed. So I think understanding that lens in terms of what that new experience is from an external perspective, and I feel talent acquisition is in a very unique position in HR, because this is the only function which is more external facing. And you really get the expectation of maybe a consumer grade experience when we apply for a job. So there is a different set of expectations, what's coming and being demanded from your candidates. And then I think from an internal perspective, just identifying and understanding what's the expectations of your internal customers, which may be your hiring manager, your business leaders, internal employees, and also the recruiting function itself, right? Recruiters, sourcers who are doing this recruiting activities every day. So what is the expectations from your internal customers? And really understanding, therefore, what needs to shift. How do we optimize processes? How do we deliver the elevated experience, which may be very signature to a client? And therefore, how do we digitize what we have designed? So to me, the design is informed by the experience definition, really thinking through that lens, and then looking at how do you digitize or how do you enable it through technology? The only, I think the traditional approach has always been first think about experience, process, and then technology. We are seeing a bit of shift because how you engage or experience a process is also being changed by technology, right? So for example, so I think having that lens in terms of what consumer grade experience is with how we interact with technology in our day-to-day life is an important element to acknowledge when you start designing your experience.
Yeah, so really in a big way, it all comes back to where we started, right? Is really making sure that foundational vision and understanding of what your business needs and why it needs it really gives you this approach of being really process and vision driven, enabled by technology, which then helps all the way downstream with the technology selection process. So really, Bhawna, then that brings us then to, so a company makes their selection, they really understand what they need, why they need it. They found the technology that they believe is going to best help support that vision. Now it's all about getting ROI and getting value out of that technology, right? Ensuring that it's being used in the way that it was designed to by the people that it was invested for. So that's the recruiters and the hiring managers. So there's just a couple of questions I want to ask then related to that. In order for technology to get the ultimate value, people need to use it, and they really need to understand the intention for how it's used in a way that aligns to those goals. To me, that's all about change management. And so in your experience, what level of change management is absolutely necessary for a technology rollout to be successful? And what advice would you give organizations to really think through that adoption and that change management plan in order to really maximize the impact of this investment?
Yeah. Great point. Technology is one component, but really getting the ROI is really aligned with the adoption, right? In terms of whether it'll be used, because we have a lot of clients who bring in a lot of technology, and when we speak with the recruiters, like, we hardly use this technology. It doesn't help us. It's an additional step. I'd rather do things differently because it saves time for me, which truly defeats the purpose of the organization intent to bring in technology. So I think if I look at the change journey, it really becomes it starts early, right? Engagement of your, in this case, if I just take an example of recruiters and hiring managers, if they are the ones who will benefit from technology, engaging them early in identification and validation of use cases, bringing them along in the vendor selection process as well. So to validate if this technology really helps solve the use cases. And then once the technology decision is made, there is a body of work which is really to update your processes, what we call is integrated process design, because with the infusion of technology, which may have an AI component, Gen AI component, or traditional technology, it changes the work, right? Because it changes who may be doing the work. It may be changing the role if there's an automation component in it. So if today a recruiter is taking certain steps manually, but it would be enabled or augmented by technology, then that work shifts. So it needs to be reflected in what your updated processes are. What's the work? Who's doing it? And in TA, talent acquisition, there is not one technology, right? There may be multiple technologies which is delivering TA output. So how does each technology enable the end-to-end process? I think that's very, very core. So making sure that's designed, updated, and clarified for the recruiters, the hiring managers, the sources, so that everybody is a part of that process of knowing what the newer processes would be. That is also a part or time when a traditional change teams would understand what's changing for each persona, right? Like today, the recruiter may be doing a body of work, but with technology, they may be doing work differently, or they need to learn new technology. So there's a whole, I would say, body of work, which is around understanding the change impact per persona, which then becomes a part of your change strategy, training plans, which is then deployed. But I think the core part of it also is, once you have moved and adopted a new technology, to evaluate the adoption, to your point, Lindsay, right? Is it being adopted? What's the usage? What's the feedback coming from the different user groups? And what additional I would say trainings or interventions may be needed if it's not fully adopted. So change management journey doesn't stop once the technology is implemented, but there's, you need to kind of continue that journey till the time everybody's moved along the change curve. And that's when I would say the true ROI is really kind of achieved. Because just plugging a technology and thinking everything people will just adopt and have changed behaviors may not always happen. So ensuring that those steps are a part of your transformation journey and are informing your way forward are very, very critical to be addressing.
Oh, absolutely. And I think what we found is, and I'm so passionate about change, right? Change, evolution, and really the psychology, for lack of a better term, for it. I think so many people, even those that are supporting and a part of this evaluation process, genuinely want new technology. But when it comes time to actually need to do something different, right, and use the technology, it's so easy, I think, and it's part of human nature for us to default back into doing things the same way. And so really making sure that companies don't stop at the implementation phase, right? That they are really pulling through that vision by evaluating and evolving this process based on both usage and feedback is really where ROI comes in. And Bhawna, that's really my last question for you, and especially with ROI of AI, right? Especially Gen AI, when the true quantifiable, let's say, ROI is still a little nebulous, right? So much is being invested and what we're getting is still a little undefined. It still is so important for organizations to determine ROI and make the return on their investment in this technology as quantifiable as possible. So what new strategies or recommendations would you have to help organizations quantify ROI, particularly on some of these more advanced and newer technologies, in order to help them measure the impact?
Yeah. And I think talent acquisition, that's always the case because you are infusing something new. So you may not have benchmarks or data which may inform your estimations of ROI. So I think, the way we approach when we are working on value cases for a newer technology would really, and that's something which is a part of our traditional technology, but also there's a the TA value case is not always about just one technology, but it will have components of Gen AI or AI, which are new as well. But I think the overall approach still it would be to really have a very first clear understanding of what your baseline for cost today is, right? And how you're capturing efficiencies. And really the spend component is important for a baseline, I would say, to start with. However, when you're looking at the value case in terms of hard saving or soft saving or even non-quantifiable benefits, I think when you have a more traditional technology, you have a range which may be more validated because your other clients, or this is the industry benchmark of what you can see the benefit because this has been adopted in the past. So there's more predictability in it. However, when you're looking at Gen AI or newer technologies, usually, we would recommend going with a range, a more conservative range, and a much more, I would say, an aggressive range because you have lesser data to quantify. However, the framework would still be the same, right? If you're looking at hard saving, you're looking at, things which can be accounted for reduction in maybe technology spend or reduction in the hours, which may be required from hiring managers or recruiting teams. If you're looking at soft savings, these may be things which would be really beneficial, but you can't really put a value against a budget around it. And then there's so much more, which from a TA perspective, which may be non-quantifiable, like benefits on your EVP, for example, right? But which may help you further future attract talent. So I think those framings still stay the same, but I think where you would really, in your evaluation, have a much more flexibility or a range in terms of newer tech versus more traditional TA tech.
That's so helpful, Bhawna. Gosh, what a lot of expertise and insights you've given us here in this time. I mean, I think my big takeaways were, start early and get clear early in your vision and what you need and why you need it and the experiences that need to be delivered from the stakeholders that you have. Also get those partners involved early, understand what the risk tolerance for technologies like this are before going into that evaluation stage. And then once in it, really help yourselves to cut out the noise by pulling through that clear vision with very aligned definitions and stakeholders to get you to the right needs for the business at the other end of that. And then don't stop there, right? Like really make sure that you have a clear plan for collecting feedback, for evolving, and for creating a change management plan that allows for the biggest value and impact of that technology that you just spent so much time and effort ultimately to invest in, right? And I think the last thing that you said is to be a bit flexible with ROI, to provide that range, understanding that there's going to be some hard returns on investment, but also some soft and more nebulous ones, and both are really impactful. So Bhawna, thank you so much for this time today. Any last words of wisdom or really things for people that might be tuning in who are just beginning their evaluation journey for their business to take note of?
Lindsay, first, that was a great recap. And thank you for having me to share these insights today. My last thoughts would be TA technology strategy, or, your stack, as, it's commonly referred. It's not once and done. It is a journey. It will keep evolving. So our recommendation would be to our clients that at any given point in time, you have your core technologies, core investments, but then there is also an appetite for experimentation and bringing in newer thoughts and ideas to really modernize talent acquisition. And some technologies where you may have invested in the past may not be working, may not be adopted. So you have to continuously evaluate your technology spend, adoption, to keep it current, to keep it modernized, and really serve your customers. So again, it's an ongoing exercise.
You are so absolutely right. I mean, things are changing so quickly. So that means that our strategy and the way that we are open to evolving needs to as well, right?
Absolutely.
Bhavna, thank you so much for this. We really appreciate it. Look forward to connecting and doing one of these again soon. And thank you so much to everybody for tuning in. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you so much, Lindsay and Bhavna. That was an amazing conversation. Sorry about popping in and out there for a second. I've been having some computer issues, and I'm glad that we have it documented so that I can show the IT team over here. That was a fantastic session. I think really, learning from assessing what your goals are going to be, setting up those frameworks, and then to touch on that last thought there of adjusting in order to move towards the future. I think of it when you are tasked with finding new TA technology. It's a lot like beginning to exercise, training for a marathon, right? You're not going to run 26.2 miles the first day you commit to running a marathon. You're going to build yourself up, and then you're going to find new trainings along the way to experiment with in order to reach that end goal. And I think, although not directly correlated, and probably not a thought a lot of people would have, as we explore these talent acquisition platforms and solutions, there's so many, and all of us want to immediately hit the ground running and run 26.2 miles as soon as we sign on the dotted line. But it really comes down to sticking with what you know and then experimenting and extending your distance each time until you reach that 26.2. But thank you so much once again to Lindsay and Bhavna. If you missed any of today's episode, you can always catch the replay on YouTube, or the podcast will be out in just a few minutes. I'm going to hop off here and push live on that. It's available on Spotify and Apple Music and everywhere in between. And as always, with every TXL episode, give us about a week or so, and we will have our live blog out there highlighting the key points for those folks who may not be able to commit to an entire episode. But thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a safe, happy, and healthy weekend. And we can't wait to see you next week for another episode of TXL. Have a great day.